The Amilcine abduction is one of the most intriguing and mysterious UFO stories to come out of Poland. It all started on May 10, 1978, when Jan Wolski, a simple farmer, had an experience that would change his life and spark endless debate among UFO enthusiasts. Though it didn't receive much media attention at the time, the story has since become a significant part of UFO lore in Poland. Jan Wolski was born on May 29, 1907, and lived a quiet, uneventful life in the small village of Amilcine, Poland. He was a farmer who spent most of his days tending to his land and caring for his animals. Wolski wasn't the kind of person who sought attention or spun wild tales. Those who knew him described him as down-to-earth and practical, the last person you'd expect to make up a story about an alien encounter. But on that fateful day, in May 1978, Wolski's life took a bizarre turn. Early in the morning, as he was driving his horse-drawn cart through the woods, he noticed something strange. Two small, green-faced beings, about 5 feet tall, suddenly appeared and jumped onto his cart. They sat next to him and began speaking in a language he couldn't understand. At first, Wolski thought they were foreigners, due to their unusual appearance, slanted eyes, prominent cheekbones, and green skin. He had no idea that he was about to become part of one of Poland's most famous UFO stories. Wolski continued driving his cart with the two beings sitting beside him until they reached a clearing. There, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks, a large white object hovering in the air. The craft was about 15 to 16.5 feet tall and as long as a bus. It floated about 16 feet above the ground, with no visible lights or seams. Wolski noticed 4 black, drill-like objects on the craft that made a humming sound. An elevator-like platform extended from the craft to the ground. The beings gestured for Wolski to step onto the platform, and without hesitation, he did. As soon as he was on the platform, it lifted him into the craft. Inside, Wolski saw several other beings, similar in appearance to the ones who had brought him there. They motioned for him to undress, which he did, and then they conducted what seemed to be an examination using a tool that looked like 2 saucers. The craft's interior was dark, with a grayish tint, and there were benches for the beings to sit on. Wolski also noticed some rooks, blackbirds, inside the craft. They appeared to be alive, but were immobilized. The beings offered Wolski some food that looked like icicles, but he refused. After the examination, they indicated that he should get dressed again. Wolski noticed there were no windows or lights inside the craft, only the daylight coming through the open door. When the examination was over, the beings led him back to the platform, which lowered him to the ground. As Wolski exited the craft, he turned and bowed to the beings, who politely bowed back before the door closed and the craft flew away. When Wolski returned home, he immediately told his family what had happened. He was eager to show them the place where the craft had hovered, so he and his sons, along with some neighbors, went to investigate. At the site, they found signs that something had been there. The grass was flattened, and there were paths leading in different directions. Wolski's sons also claimed to have seen footprints, though they didn't specify whether the prints were larger or smaller than a human's. A 6-year-old boy from the village also reported seeing a strange craft that day. He described it as a bus-like object hovering over a barn before it shot up into the sky and disappeared. Wolski's account was taken seriously enough that 2 months later, he was interviewed by Henryk Pomorski and Krystyna Adamczyk, who recorded his story on tape. This audio recording was kept private for many years before being released to the public. As with many UFO stories, the Amilcine abduction has its share of skeptics and believers. Some people think Wolski might have been confused or hallucinating, perhaps mistaking a natural phenomenon for something supernatural. Others believe he was telling the truth, convinced by his sincerity and the fact that he had nothing to gain from making up such a story. One thing that stands out about Wolski's account is how consistent he was in his retelling. Despite his age and the bizarre nature of his experience, he never wavered in his story. This consistency, along with the details he provided, has led many to consider the Amilcine abduction one of the more credible UFO encounters. In 2005, nearly 3 decades after the alleged abduction, a monument was erected in Emilcin to commemorate the event. The monument is simple but striking, featuring an inscription in Polish that reads, "On the 10th of May, 1978, in Emilcin, a UFO object landed. The truth will astonish us in the future." The monument has since become a place of interest for UFO enthusiasts and curious visitors, serving as a reminder of the strange event that took place in this quiet village. Though the Emilcin abduction didn't receive much attention from the media at the time, it has since become a part of Polish pop culture. Several books and television documentaries have been produced about the incident, exploring it from different angles, some treating it as a serious event, others as more of a curiosity. In 1978, shortly after the abduction, a comic book titled The Visitors was published, illustrated by Grzegorz Rosinski and written by Henryk Kurta. The comic book offered a visual retelling of Wolski's encounter, bringing the story to a younger audience and helping to keep the tale alive in the public's imagination. Even today, the Emilcin abduction remains a topic of debate among UFO researchers and skeptics alike. Some see it as an important piece of evidence in the search for extraterrestrial life, while others view it as just another strange, but ultimately unprovable story. What's clear is that the event left a lasting impression on those who heard it, particularly in Poland, where it has become one of the most famous UFO cases. Jan Wolski passed away in 1990, but his story lives on. One of the reasons the Emilcin abduction has endured in popular culture is because it taps into a deep fascination with the unknown. The idea that we might not be alone in the universe has intrigued and scared people for generations. Stories like Wolski's remind us that there are still many mysteries out there waiting to be uncovered, whether they're extraterrestrial in nature or simply unexplained phenomena.